What is my conception of electronic literature? I first asked myself this before reading Pry, my first ever e-literature novel. Is it literature that takes the form of an interactive fiction, a thread of visuals amongst a text, or is it just simply text among the electronic device? Even after forming my conception of e-literature, I feel it necessary to address my preconceived notions and expectations about Pry. I simply won't enjoy it. Why? It's the smell of the pages and the turning of the pages that first pull me in. I am also a reader who enjoys constantly visualizing what the text says, and have actually always hated seeing a book turned into a movie, realizing that what I visualized was incorrect in someone else's eyes. These preconceived notions were quickly rendered when I began watching the prologue of Pry. I found myself intently watching and concentrating on the images that were appearing before my eyes, wondering where it was going to lead me next. This is very similar to what I do with any text at the beginning of a novel, wondering, who is this character packing his bag? What will the context of this plot be? And where will my emotions be after the plot of the story has come to an end? This is no different so far from how I feel or think when reading a novel. When beginning to pry into the plot, it was very evident that the authors only gave you a glimpse of who the characters were and seemed to almost purposely leave holes throughout the storyline, forcing you to question the text and go back to dig deeper. I don't know if I would describe my first experience with Pry to be intriguing. I would have to describe my sensory experience as confusing. It's almost necessary to read the text of Pry twice, only because I felt myself more focused on the swiping, the tapping, and what to do with the text next, rather than the context of the plot. It may also be that I am just impatient, but I found myself not wanting to finish the entire image or short clip of his subconscious or visuals through James' perspective, so I could just move on to the actual print. I felt I could understand the print better at times than the visuals, yet the print didn't explain to me why James was somewhat losing his mind and visualizing Luke there when he wasn't, and Jesse attacking him. Having a glimpse of James' childhood, family, medical struggles, and his subconscious thoughts makes it almost hard to describe what I found, and I feel could easily be different based off of another reader's perception of James and the plot of Pry. It became very clear near the end of Pry that readers were not going to just be handed the meaning of the text. Pry is more of an interactive app than a text to me. When reading Pry the first time, I was more concentrated on how to navigate the text than on the plot itself. For instance, Chapter 6 appeared at first a puzzle to me, more of just how to access the content than understand it. When going back a second time, I first asked myself what the author's purpose was for this specific chapter. So I read it differently. I decided to open up the entire text and watch each subconscious video and the perspective of James after each line. Then, I noticed that after opening up each line, some lines were still bolded, so I thought that the author intently bolded them to heighten the importance. Next, I realized that if I shrunk the text back down so that the only highlighted lines were visible, the plot was entirely different, which I found very interesting and helpful. In conclusion, it's hard for me to reflect on what this text suggests about the future of reading when I do not view it as an actual text. Is it because of the overwhelming artistic touch? Is it because of the interactive tools? Or is it simply because it is out of the norm for a standard literature novel? What I can take from this text is the value of a text that can appeal to young adults who do not like the structure of turning page after page when you read.